Welcome to the 9th and final lecture in Module 6, and congratulations for getting here. In this lecture, we'll do the 5th and final iteration of the blog application. We'll make it work with Ajax, which is pretty cool. Let's see how. Remember that in the show.html.erb file, under the View Posts, this is where we're showing both the post and the comments. Let's take a look at that code. Open it up on your machine, and let's take a look at what's happening inside. First, there's the code for displaying a post. Then there's code for displaying the comments associated with a given post. Then there's a form for creating new comments. And finally, at the bottom, there's some links. Well, we'd like to dynamically update just portions of this page using Ajax. And these are the two portions we're going to dynamically update. The code for displaying the new comment only, and then the form for creating a new comment. Here's a summary of how we're going to do it. First, we're going to identify the pieces of the page that are going to be dynamically updated. That's what I just did for you. Next, we're going to create partial templates. Now, in Rails, partial templates are just snippets of HTML that get loaded. It doesn't go through the whole process of wrapping the full template with application.html.erb to create a full web page. It only sends that snippet of HTML code. And to indicate that something's a partial template, you use underscore. So we're going to create a file called underscore comment.html.erb, and we're going to place that in the view under comments. Then we're going to modify the form so that it uses Ajax, and I showed you how to do that. The form that's in the show.html.erb file, we're going to add remote true to indicate that this is going to be an asynchronous request. Then we need to modify the controller, in other words, what's on the server side, so that it can respond to that request. And we're going to have to add something called respond to format.js that allows an asynchronous response to be sent back to the browser. And finally, we'll create the JavaScript code that's going to be returned and dynamically executed in the web page. And this is going to be a file called create.js.erb. Let's take a look at how we can do this in Rails right now. So let's get started with the 5th iteration of the blog application. And in this iteration, we're going to add some Ajax. And we're going to use that to dynamically update just the newest comment that's submitted. In other words, we don't want to reload this entire page, but only the new comment that was added, and then we want to reset the form. Let's take a look at the view code that needs to be modified in order for this to happen. So here's our show.html.erb inside view posts. And this is the part right here that we want to make dynamic. The div for the comment, we'd like to update this part dynamically. So let's just copy this piece of code, and I need to create a partial template to handle this. And the way that partial templates work is that they don't reload the application.html. They don't go through and do that. Only the partial template itself is rendered by Rails. So it doesn't include all of the other HTML header and all of those types of things. Just the partial template itself is loaded. And so we're going to need to go to Views, Comments, and I'm going to create a new file called underscore comment.html.erb. And this underscore lets Rails know that this is a partial template. So in other words, the application.html.erb file, which is normally loaded for other templates, this file won't be loaded. Only the partial template code will be loaded. And I copied that code from the show.html.erb file, and I'm pasting it here now. So let's save that. The next thing we need to do is make sure that an Ajax request is being initiated. And we actually took care of that in the previous lecture. And remember what we did is we added the remote true. And in the comments controller, we specified that this controller could respond with JavaScript. And now, if you look at the create method inside the comments controller, if you don't supply a particular name, what's going to happen is it's assuming that there's a create.js.erb that will be called when you try and respond with JavaScript. So I just added that as a comment just to make it clear that if you create a create.js.erb file, it will be called when we initiate the asynchronous AJAX request. Because that file wasn't present previously, the server returned an error. In the previous lecture, if you recall, the server returned an error when we made this request. So this will fix that. We need to go to Views, Comments, and create a new file, the create.js.erb file. And we're going to put some JavaScript jQuery code in here. So this first line creates a JavaScript variable called new comment, and here we're using jQuery. And we're going to render this comment. This line does that. And then this line of code escapes it to JavaScript. What this does is it makes sure that this text that's returned by Ruby is valid JavaScript. And so then we hide the entire the entire comment that was created. Next, there's another jQuery. We create the wrap set, finding this div that has ID comments, and we prepend the new comment that we just created. We prepend it. It means we put it at the beginning of that div. And then on the next line, there's a comment underscore with a given comment ID. That's the comment ID associated with the comment we just created. And we use an animation effect. We fade it in slowly. And this allows the user to see the change on the web page. They can actually see that one piece of code fading in. So again, we're only going to be adding this one piece of code through the by rendering this partial. That's the only thing that's going to be changed on this web page, nothing else. It's not going to involve the reloading of the entire web page. And this is where it happens. And then this last line of code simply resets the form that's used for submitting comments so that somebody can submit yet another comment. Let's save this code. And now let's take a look at what happens in the browser. Just to review what we're doing, let's take a look at Elements. And again, here's the div that has ID comments, and we're going to prepend the new comment within this div. And you'll see here are the comment IDs that I referred to previously, and so the new comment will be placed right here. And then if we look at the form, this is the form that's going to be reset. That was the last line of that JavaScript code. So let's add a new comment and see what happens. And we'll see that it faded in right here. Beautiful. We have AJAX working. I would encourage you to play around with this a little bit. You can actually change how that fades in. You can change the color. You can do some interesting things so the user can see it. Now, there's something I want to show you here. We've got some code that is repeated. And one of the principles in Rails is you should not repeat yourself. That's the DRY principle. Do not repeat yourself. And here's the repeated piece of code. In the posts, the show.html.erb file under the views, this code is identical to that that's under comments in the partial that we created, the underscore comment.html.erb. Let's fix this. We're going to refactor the show.html.erb code. And sometimes people refer to this as drying up your code. Let's get rid of those repeats. And the way we're going to do this is all of this code that's repeated, I'm going to get rid of. And I'm going to render the same partial that we use for the comments. Now, this is going to render all of the comments in reverse order. And this is going to make things look a little bit better because now all the comments will show up in reverse order, meaning that the most recent comments will be on top. Let's again take a look at what this does in the browser. We'll save this file and open up the browser. Here we are in the browser with the comment that we just added. And I'm going to just reload this page, and we'll see that now the comments are in reverse sorted order. And still, when I add a new comment, it's going to be added at the top using AJAX. Beautiful. Enjoy.
This completes the 9th and final lecture in Module 6.